Hi, my name is Diana Castro, and I had the honor of starting and heading Media Committee this year. In this video, you'll have a chance to associate script writing, narration, graphics, animations, article summaries, and video editing skills with names and faces. But before we get started, I just quickly want to thank Aanchal, Apurva, Christine, Cole, Dhruv, Katie, Kian, Kausalya, Lorena, Lucy, Luyan, and Sean Michael for being such an amazing committee to work with and for really making Media Committee possible. You can check out everyone's work in this video on our YouTube channel, on the InterAxon Instagram account, and the InterAxon website. With that being said, let's get started.
Now we can move on to our sense of touch. Our skin is the largest organ, covering the entire body. It has many receptors that respond to different information from the environment. These cells can help you detect temperature, pressure, and pain. Let's look at two main layers of our skin, the epidermis and the dermis.
Hello, and welcome to the first episode of UCLA InterAxon's Neuroscience for Kids. Today, we will be learning about the lobes of the brain, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. We all have brains, but why do we need them? To put it simply, your brain keeps you alive by helping you make sense of the world around you. Hi, welcome back. And for those of you new here, welcome to UCLA InterAxon's Neuroscience for Kids. Today, we will be learning about the five senses, which are sight, touch, taste, smell, and hearing. You already know that the CNS is made up of the brain and the spinal cord, so the PNS is made up of all nerves beyond the brain and spinal cord. We'll start with the four CNS glia.
Now that we've covered the corpus callosum, we can talk about the lobes, or the 4 divisions of the cerebrum. Do you remember what they're called? They are the frontal, parietal, temporal, and occipital lobes. We'll start off with the frontal lobe. The spinal cord is really important because it sends signals between your body and the brain, helps you move, and gives you cat-like reflexes. Because it's so important, it's covered by 3 protective layers called the meninges. These layers provide a cushion for the spinal cord, and from inner to outermost, they are the pia, arachnoid, and dura mater.
It's Mental Health Awareness Month. Mental health is anything related to our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. Acknowledging mental health, or more specifically mental illness, is generally frowned upon in our society, and for what? About 1 in 5 American adults suffers from a diagnosable mental disorder every year.
The cerebrum is the largest part of the human brain, making up 85% of your total brain weight. Any idea how much a human brain weighs? The average adult brain weighs about 3 pounds, so your cerebrum is about 2.5 pounds. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode brought to you by UCLA InterAxon's Neuroscience for Kids. Today we'll be talking about neurons, or nerve cells. Do you know what a neuron is? A neuron is the most basic cell or building block of the central nervous system. The central nervous system is made up of your brain and spinal cord.
Now, let's move on down to the temporal lobe. The temporal lobe is located on the sides of your brain near your ears. It's home to the hippocampus, which mainly deals with memory. What kind of word is hippocampus? Well, it can be broken down into 2 Greek roots, hippos, which means horse, and campos, which means sea monster. Once the action potential reaches the axon terminals, or ends of the axon, the signal becomes chemical. Axon terminals are home to neurotransmitters or chemical messengers in tiny sacs called vesicles. Neurotransmitters are sent across the small gap between neurons, called the synaptic cleft, and bind to dendrites on the receiving neuron. Astrocytes are the most common glial cell and get their name from the Greek word for star, astron. These star-shaped cells form the blood-brain barrier, which stops dangerous chemicals from reaching your brain. Astrocytes do this by wrapping their tiny feet around blood vessels and keeping them tightly connected. Welcome back! In this video, we will be discussing the topic of depression. According to the American Psychiatric Association, also known as APA, in order to be diagnosed, a person must be experiencing 5 or more symptoms during the same 2-week period, and at least one of the symptoms should be either depressed mood or loss of interest or pleasure. Neurotransmitters are chemicals that carry messages between neurons and can affect mood and behavior. Low levels of neurotransmitters can disrupt proper signaling to the brain regions involved in emotional processing.
You may have noticed that the cerebrum is split into 2 big parts. These parts are called hemispheres and are connected by a bundle of fibers called the corpus callosum. The corpus callosum is shaped like the letter C and is about 10 centimeters long. Recent studies on the famous physicist Albert Einstein's brain revealed that his corpus callosum was a lot thicker than average. That means his hemispheres had really strong connections and sent messages to each other really quickly. The spinal cord is made up of 31 nerve segments, which can be organized into 5 main sections. From top to bottom, these 5 are the cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral, and coccygeal sections. These names refer to the nerves and bones at that level.
The brainstem plays a huge role in keeping us alive. It manages some of the brain's involuntary processes or things that we don't have to think about doing, like breathing or regulating our heart rates. Can you imagine how hard life would be if you had to think about making your heart beat? Imagine if you forgot. The next sense we have is taste. We can taste after tiny chemicals called tastins bind to receptors on the tongue called taste buds. We have around 10,000 taste buds which get replaced about every 2 weeks. These receptors help us enjoy the 5 different tastes, which are sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami. It's May, which means it's Mental Health Awareness Month. Mental health is anything related to our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. Acknowledging mental health, or more specifically mental illness, is generally frowned upon in our society, and for what? About 1 in 5 American adults suffers from a diagnosable mental disorder every year. That's why this month is meant to draw attention to mental health. It's meant to fight the stigma regarding mental illness and to provide support for those who need it most.